Hi, and welcome to Out on a Limb with Gabby Allen. I am so excited that you're here today. I have the absolute pleasure to introduce you to one of my favorites, Paula Chaffee Scardamalia. And as we've talked about before, I always have to ask about last names because I want to make sure that I'm not messing it up. So Paula and I have been friends for a number of years, and she is a super, super talented person. I love everything that she does, and I cannot wait for you guys to meet her and to get into conversation with us. So Paula, I'm going to ask you the one question that I ever prepare, which is, what is it that you do and how do you do it?
Well, are we talking writing? What are we talking about here?
And that's part of the much talent.
It's funny because I'm teaching an online course right now through a writer's group that's on myths, fairy tales, and dreams.
Yes.
And that pretty much sums it up, right?
It does.
It does. So I do a lot of intuitive work, like dream work, shamanic dream work, and tarot that I use to help writers tell their stories. So I'm a book coach and a book editor. But there you go. Yes. Tarot for the fiction writer, right?
Seriously, if you don't have this, you need to go right now. Well, after the video, don't stop. Just listen to us. But in the meantime, be looking for
this. And I have a book coming out in the spring called Enchanting Creativity, which again is another creative book on the creative process inspired by the Sleeping Beauty story. So, you can kind of see a theme developing here because there are myth and metaphor and archetypes in the tarot and in fairy tale, in myth, and also in a lot of the stories we write, which is what the online class I'm teaching is about. So, I tell people that myth and fairy tale are kind of my linguistic palette. Yeah. And I use it for both fiction and nonfiction. And so I write both fiction and nonfiction. Most of my creds are in the nonfiction field, but I had a book published in 2018 called In the Land of the Vultures, my first novel, and I'm working on another book, as you know, right now, inspired by the muses.
I cannot wait for that to come out.
Yeah, hurry. I can't wait to get it done.
Isn't that funny? It always amazes me that we're like these really creative people, and like the story is just rolling in our head, and then it's not, and then things get in the way, life gets in the way, and it's like, I really want this done. I have all of the pieces and parts in my head. Why can't I just put the end on this? And that's part of this podcast, I think, is encouraging people that even people with a lot of creds still have that issue sometimes, and that it's not like, it's always going to be work. You can totally fly through writing, but you are still going to have days where you don't feel like doing it, or the story is not rolling. And this hopefully will encourage people to realize that there are as many ways to do this as there are people doing it, and B, don't give up just because it's hard.
Well, and the other thing is, I have all these tools at my disposal that I use with clients: the tarot, the dream work, intuitive stuff. And I'm really good at seeing patterns and helping other writers fix things and work through things. Then when it comes to my own story, I'm pulling cards. I'm still like, oh God, I'm in the middle and I can't get past it. What is wrong?
Yes.
So yeah.
We
all go through it, right?
Totally understand. I can plot like nobody's business with other people sometimes, and I'm like, oh, and then you could do this, and then you could do this, and what about this, and it would be so awesome if we did this, and then I'm like, what comes next in my story? I don't really know what. I'm like, what, did you use all your go juice on everybody else? Because why are we still writing this story? but again, it is what it is. And I think, if you're in it for the long haul, you're going to have those days. I mean, you can't write as many books as you have, and as I have, without running up against blocks. I don't know that I want to call them writer's blocks, because I think that that infers that you can't get over it, but just detours.
Well, and I think part of it too is that, of course, we get in our own way. I mean, we do it in other aspects of our lives. Why wouldn't we do it in our writing as well?
Yeah.
And that's why, we go to the doctor, we go to the therapist, we go to the stylist, we go over here and go over there, because sometimes what we need is perspective, or more experience, or, new ideas. And sometimes we just, because we get frustrated, right?
Yes.
Because we feel like we're bashing our head against a wall. Yes. Ouch, ouch, ouch. And then it's like, we're seeing stars instead of ideas, and it's just like, okay, how do I get out of this now? So we need somebody who'll turn on a light for us or show us the door. Oh, you dummy, it's over here.
If you look over your left shoulder, it's right there. Right. Sometimes your vision gets very narrowed, and that's one of the reasons that I do enjoy reading or using your tarot for the fiction writer book, is that I find that sometimes all I need is a little gas. And I'm trolling along in my golf cart or my whatever it is that I'm driving currently at the moment, and I'm running out of fuel, and I am feeling like, okay, I've kind of taken that as far as I wanted to. I need what happens next. And if I use your tarot for the fiction writer, I'm able to, it's like the thought is already in there. I just needed, like you said, someone to turn the light on. And so I really do like that, because I flip the card and I'm like, oh, okay, now I know what we're doing.
Right. And that's, when I do readings for clients, rather it's writers who need ideas, or it's somebody who needs answers for their life, often what I will tell them first is that this is like a mirror. All it's doing is holding up something and a reflection of something you already know or perceive, so you can see it more clearly, or you can see details you didn't catch before, or you can see it in a different aspect, and just that little bit is enough, as to send you another 90,000 words into the story.
Oh yeah, because I love, we do a writing session sometimes, and we have a great group. It's a writing circle, and I'll be stuck, and I will ask a question, and Paul will pull a card, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing. Hold on 1 second while I go write that down. I'm like, all right, now I'm set for another 2,000 to 3,000 words. Let's roll. But it does. I think that people, I love when people are open to different tools, because some people, journal, and some people they have those card decks that look like you're playing Trivial Pursuit, and you pull 3
Oracle decks.
You have to put an alien and corn and a truck into your next scene, and that's supposed to jazz you along. Now those don't work as well for me. I do have dice also that you can throw down, and you pick them like Yahtzee and decide which ones are going to be in your next scene. That's awesome. It doesn't work as well for me as what we've done, or what I've learned to do from you. And so to me, use whatever works for you. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So sometimes, as an alternative to that kind of thing, because I used to be a professional weaver at the loom, which you can kind of see in back.
Yes.
But I would sit and weave. And as I was doing that rhythmic motion, then I would be problem solving in my head around the story. Now, I haven't been weaving. In fact, I'm trying to sell the loom, but I have started doing watercolor.
Yeah.
And and so the swashes of color on the paper, the movement of the brush, you know, the swirl, the dip into the water, the clink of the brush against the water jar, all those little things are just a way of allowing me to kind of center and let other things, you know, let the story go on back here while I'm focused up here. And so that's why, you know, in other writing books and stuff, you'll see people mention going for a walk or going gardening and pulling weeds, which I also do a lot of, just did this morning. So all those things. And when I was working on my MFA, working on a thesis project, you know, one of the things I mentioned was the issue of course, at the time I was a mother with 3 young boys, washing dishes. And often, of course, all my wonderful story ideas would go down the drain with the suds, you know, so, right?
I love it. Yes, it happens. It happens.
That's why people put whiteboards up in their shower stalls, you know, so that they don't go down the drain.
I have crayons that draw on the shower wall itself. And I absolutely have done that. And then I just go in with my phone and take a picture really quick and then wipe it off. But I do get some great ideas when I'm in there, like scrubbing this big, huge hair. And I'm like, I don't want to lose that because I'm not going to remember it exactly.
Right?
I'm thinking of it at the moment if I don't take the time to write it down really quick. Yeah. It's, you know,
and that's why, you know, it's similar to dream work.
Okay.
You know, I tell people you keep a journal and a pen by the bed because when you wake up, and, you know, anything can make something disappear from our mind. But with dream work, if you wake up and you turn your head, gravity has an effect on the brain and you'll lose it. So when you wake up, you pull the dream back and then you record it so that you don't lose it. And, you know, you grab hold of it as much as you can before you get up to write. So
that's really interesting to me because, like, I know for myself, I'll have like really vivid dreams sometimes. And I'll wake up and it's almost like I'm running behind it, but I'm not fast enough because I'll have a big vision. And if I don't grab onto it, it's like it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I'm running after it and then it's gone. And I might be able to capture the feeling, but I often, like, I might get a flash of one thing, but I have no idea where it came from. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. So what I tell people when I'm teaching dream workshops is that you, first you don't move. So you wake up, you don't move. You play as much of the dream back as you can. And then when you sit up to record it, you record it in present tense because as a writer, you know that present tense is more immediate and helps you pull it back.
Interesting.
So, and recording the feeling is also important. If that's all you've got, record the feeling because that starts to tell the dream messengers that you're paying attention. So,
all right. Oh, now I got something else I got to do in the morning when I get up. No, I love it. I will totally do that. That's awesome. That's very interesting. And I used to have, I still have somewhere, I just don't know where, one of those, like, what do my dreams mean books. And like, if you see an alligator, it means this thing. And I'm like, I'd let those go because I see the shaking head. The huge no is going on. Because I was like, that doesn't, like, what you think that's not at all the feeling that I got from the alligator. I was on the Jungle Cruise in Disney World. I don't think it has anything to do with, you know, so interesting. So you're not a big fan of those?
No. And see, this is, and again, I was just putting this in the lesson for the online class today. One of the things I teach is that the most important dream dictionary you can refer to is your own personal dream dictionary, because what an alligator, for instance, will mean to you is not the same thing that it will mean to me or somebody else.
Right.
If you need a reference for something that might cue you in to what it symbolizes, then go to a symbol dictionary or a myth or fairy tale reference, because, for instance, here's the one I use all the time, the example, snake.
Okay.
So your listeners, some of them out there are going, snakes, I hate them, I don't want, and
Right.
Others out there are going, oh, I love them, they're so wonderful, they're magical,
Yes.
they represent this and this and this. So you see, if you have a dream, and that's also why recording your feelings about something is key.
Yeah.
Because if you normally like snakes, but in this dream you're really scared, there's something else going on here. So, you know, again, why you can't just use a so-called dream dictionary.
Right.
The best dream dictionary is your dream journal.
Interesting. Okay. See, now I'm learning stuff. I love learning stuff. I always learn stuff from you. It's just, I don't know how you carry the weight of the Misty instructor / Gabby instructor on your shoulders, but I do appreciate you carrying it. Because I'm like, oh, we're talking to Paula. I'm going to learn something. I don't know what it's going to be, but I will totally learn something because it's Paula. That's fabulous.
Likewise, Toots.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. So the book that you had come out, are you continuing that series? Because I know, like, the tarot card reader and then this new one are kind of in a like a series almost, where different things are being addressed in different ways. But as far as your fiction goes, are you doing series in there too, or?
The first novel, In the Land of the Vultures, was actually, come to think of it, now that we were talking about it, inspired by a dream.
Oh, okay.
Inspired by 2 dreams. All right. And I had this dream about this woman in a desert environment, drought, vultures, but they weren't. The interesting thing was that the woman in the dream and the young girl with her were not afraid of the vultures.
Oh,
they were doing their job. All right.
Interesting.
And I had 2 dreams around that and decided I had to explore that. So my heroine is priestess to the goddess of death.
Yes.
So back to your original question about series. I could do more with it, but I'm really engaged by the, that took place, that was more of a fantasy romance that took place like in an environment like ancient Egypt or something, Turkey, that kind of area.
Yes.
This is,
book, by the way.
Oh, thank you. This, the novel I'm currently working on, as you know, is very contemporary.
Yes.
Takes place in a New England environment on an island mostly, and has a very different feel to it from the other one. So in terms of going back to the first one and making a series out of it, I'm so engaged with this one right now. Plus I've also got an idea for another series. So you know how this goes.
I do. And we've talked about that before, where I'm like, I have like 8 series in my head. I think I need to finish one before I start another one. This is not good. I know. But yeah, I mean, so for the listener, we like I said before, we have writing sessions, and I have been with Paula while she is writing. And let me tell you, Paula should not be here because she should be writing, because you guys are going to want this book so bad. I want this book horrendously bad. I know you're going to want it. The muses. I really love reading fantasy that is myth-based, and you are really, really good at bringing that in without seeming to like teach it. I guess I think that's the right word. So like the things that you have talked about that you're doing make me feel like I'm excited to learn, but I'm also excited to like be on this journey with these two characters. Seriously, you guys are gonna love this book so much. It involves writing and beach stuff, and I can't even stand myself. Every
And the
time.
Lord of Dreams, you know, the
Yes,
Greek, the god of dreams. Yeah.
yes, I can't wait.
Morpheus, who's such a hunk.
I know, right? So we're all gonna have to pull in and demand that Paula continue this series with, the other people, but we need to get the first book out so that we can all get very, very addicted to it, because that's another thing. I hadn't realized that you had an MFA. So with with that, do you because we get a lot of writers on here that have varying levels of education as far as writing itself goes. Do you feel like that was something that really helped propel both your fiction and your nonfiction writing?
I'm not not the nonfiction necessarily.
Okay.
I did write a thesis that had to do with fantasy in both fiction and weaving, believe it or not, because I was creating weavings at the time that had mythic elements in them.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were imagistic weavings. They weren't my shawls and stuff that I have made in the past. And so the thesis was about the fantasy, but as part of my thesis, I also wrote a young adult novel.
Oh, okay.
Called the Blue Robe of the Guardian.
Ooh.
Which had to do with the secrets of dyeing cloth the royal blue.
I love it.
So, yeah.
So can I have that one too?
It's sitting in a drawer here. It didn't go any further, but hey, maybe someday. I have another manuscript that I was agented for a while and then was given back, called The Shadow Weaver, which again, it's inspired by the Sleeping Beauty story, and it has to do with dreams. So are you seeing common threads?
I am.
Here?
I am. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I like the threads. And, so then I say we roll with them. Paula and I just have to point out, Paula and I have the same cup, because you're the she to my nanigans. Paula is definitely the she to my nanigans. And I really very much.
I had to get it, because don't you have that? Because you have shenanigans on your t-shirt.
Yes, I do. I am the shenanigan coordinator today. I have one that says shenanigan enthusiast too. Whatever.
There you go.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So when you are working with myths and that kind of thing, is it something you already have a background in, so you kind of know what to search out information wise? Or do you feel like somebody who would be interested in writing those kinds of books can find resources that would help them explore those themes also?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So I have been a fan of myth and fairy tales since I was old enough to read.
Okay.
So and in fact, I remember in elementary school coming across a book of illustrated myths that I read and took out repeatedly. Yes. And fairy tales. And my aunt, my mother's older sister, gave us a fairy tale book for Christmas one year that I still have sitting out in the other room.
Yes.
That is very treasured. My weaving business, Nettles and Green Threads, was taken from a fairy tale. So yes, I have a long background in reading and studying myth and fairy tale. I took a couple classes in it in undergrad. And yes, of course, you can do a lot of reading around it. There are Great Courses has a whole bunch of things on myth and one on fairy tale and stuff like that. But one of the things I'm having the students in the online class do is start to make a list of all their favorite fairy tales and myths and TV shows and films, and look at what are some common motifs, what are some common landscapes, what are some common characters, and how do those relate to myth and fairy tale.
Oh, I like that. Because that could be a bouncing off point for writing contemporary, writing thrillers, writing mysteries, writing anything, if you can see like the things that draw you. Yeah. I love it. Now I have another list to make. Why do you make and that, I mean, I think it's very interesting because some people get stuck in a story that they want to tell, but then like these are the kind of things that will get you over those humps, that, you know, you're like, okay, well, this is what I started out with. What would lead me back onto the path going in that direction? So, I mean, do you find that that's one of the things that helps you, is kind of knowing what your theme is? Or, well, we talked about this just this last week.
So, as you know from previous conversations, but your listeners don't, the story I'm currently working on is very much can be referenced to Rapunzel.
Yes.
And it's that idea of being locked in a tower or an environment that keeps you from being able to explore the world. Now, rather the world is the physical world, the world of your imagination, the world of love and sex, whatever it is, you get put in that tower and kept there by a mother figure who has the power.
Yes.
And it's breaking free of that dynamic that allows Rapunzel then to find love and to free herself from the tower. And this is something similar to what my character has to do. And I didn't realize it at first. And it was when I came to it, even though I was working with myth,
yes,
interestingly, it's the fairy tale that helps me understand structure and some of the dynamics I want to look at.
I love it. I think it's really cool that, like, if you look at a lot of the fairy tales that we tell, read, whatever today, and you look at what they were before they made it into modern day, some of them are downright scary. I mean, they were cautionary tales, at least from some of the research that I have done. A lot of like the Grimm fairy tales and that kind of thing, when you look into what the original story was across cultures, a lot of times they all have the same exact fairy tale. It's just told involving their particular culture, because obviously they don't all have the exact same culture. Not everybody is going to have a woodcutter's hut, because not everybody lived in an area where there were a ton of woodcutters. And so that's going to make Hansel and Gretel different in a different culture. But there were a lot of different ones, but they're far darker than a lot of people realize, because they have been sanitized throughout the years to then become like Disney movies. I find that
and you know, I mean, the prince in Rapunzel gets blinded, his eyes are bleeding. Sleeping Beauty is not awakened by a kiss, but when she gives birth to 2 children. You know, Cinderella stepsister cuts off her heel to try to shove her foot into the glass slipper. You know, I mean, they're not pretty stories.
Right. But I think that at the core of them, 9 times out of 10, there is a theme or a something to explore, that even as a romance author, even if parts of it are ugly, you can still very much pull out the part that's not and tell a story with that around it. And I like the idea of that, because it's a little like a guidebook that you're more than welcome to run off the rails and do your own thing also, but there's also like this thing in the middle that's like, oh, I need to come back and touch that.
Well, and you know, for if you think about even the Sleeping Beauty story, or not Sleeping Beauty, the Cinderella, where the stepsister cuts off her heel, you know, yeah, in your book, she doesn't have to cut off her heel, but it's very much that idea of how far will someone go to get what they want.
Yes. Yes. And so I love the fairy tales and the myths that you work with, because I feel like, as we've talked about them before, it's not necessarily retelling a fairy tale. It is taking the concept that is explored within that fairy tale and using it kind of as a structure to then tell your own story with characters that speak to you.
Right, right. And again, you know, understanding character, plot, motif, setting, you know. So there's a reason that musical was called Into the Woods.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think when you're a writer, sometimes you can also get into a habit of doing things a certain way. And if your habit is no longer working, exploring different avenues outside of the way you normally do it can really, really help you gain a new perspective and still tell the same kind of story, because when you get far enough in, you want to make sure that you're pleasing the readers who've been along with you for a long time and still bring in new ones. But if you tell your story, but through a slightly different lens, I just don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it's just one more tool for your toolbox.
And the other thing to think about is that often the elements of a myth or a fairy tale that the culture of your readers is very familiar with,
yes,
will resonate with them on a level, even if it's not, the association is not obvious,
right,
will resonate with them on a level that they don't recognize or know. It just resonates.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons we love what's his name in NCIS? The name just escaped me.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons we love him, because he's a mythic character.
Yes.
And he, so there's just that resonance. We don't always see it and understand it. And Abby, because she's a mythic character. And
yes,
even Doc is a mythic character,
Yes.
So yeah, they resonate even though we don't understand or recognize it.
Well, and I think when you get down into something like that, if if you have someone who is a reader who maybe hasn't read your stuff before, but they read the first chapter, you are very good at pulling those resonating characters out. You've hooked them because they're like, I can see myself in here. Like, a lot of people want to be able to feel like they get and what's going on and then go through the journey. And if you can get that resonating thing out of the way right at the beginning, they're going to have a hard time putting that book down because they will want to find out what happens next.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's some of that emotional energy around that mythos or that fairy tale character. If you can tap into that emotional quality aspect of it, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too that, when you're when you're writing, you have there's like a path in your mind that you're walking down. And if you go out into the woods to pick berries every once in a while, but you know that the road is there, that it's more of a guidepost, I guess, more than anything, to be able to tell a story that is going to have a beginning, a middle, an end, and you choose how the end works. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's, and then that's when I also, because the middle tends to sometimes be the hardest part for me. I know the beginning, I know the end, I know I have to get there somehow, But if I use the tarot for the fiction writer, I'm able to kind of skip my way through like a stone on the water as opposed to sinking. Because I'm like, what do I do now? Oh gosh. Okay. Oh, this is not as bad, right?
There's a wonderful book. I'm just grabbing here. There's a wonderful book by Marina Warner called Once Upon a Time. Yeah, and you know, the reason I was grabbing it or looking for it is because she has a wonderful quote in here. To see if I can find it really quick. Oh yes, here it is. Therapists, performance artists, courtiers, and photographers. A festive cavalcade of those professions now called creative content providers,
yes,
are losing themselves in the forests of fairy tale in order to come back with baskets of strawberries picked in the snow.
Oh, I love that. I love
Isn't that beautiful?
That's
by Marina Warner.
Okay, I might have to go to grab because I need more books. You always
I know.
You always need more books. That's all there is to it. It's just you always do. Don't
do you buy craft and reference books in print rather than ebook? Yes. I have to buy my reference books in print.
Absolutely. They have to be. I tried once with the Emotional Thesaurus, I think it was called. And I was like, surely I can do this with an ebook. It'll be fine. And so I had it on my Kindle. I also opened it up on my computer. Nope. There is something for me between the screen and paper that really flips a switch. And especially when I'm trying to I need to be able to flip through and I need to be able to have little stickies. It's just it's as simple as that and as difficult as that all at the same
sticky,
time.
Marked passages.
Yeah, it has to be done. It does.
Right?
Yeah, that's why I I have your books. I have your weaving book also, Weaving a Woman's Life. Did I say that right? Okay. But yes, and that is that's actually how we met. I was at the New Jersey conference and I was able to meet Paula and be able to talk with her and figure out exactly, I was very fascinated by the cards. And she was doing a thing with the cards and kind of how to use them during your storytelling. And then she had a book for sale and it was Weaving the Woman's Life. And I was like, I have to have one of those. Can I have it? What can I write you a check? Do you need cash? I don't care. Just tell me how I can have that. And I went up to my room and I read it that night because I just was absolutely pulled in by everything that was being said and really felt like I was seen. And I think that's one of the things that you do really well with the resonating is making people, as they're reading, even as they're reading Vultures and Goddesses of Death, they still feel seen. And that's a huge talent. That is, and it's definitely something that you can learn. So I'm not saying if you don't have it, you're never going to get it. I'm just saying that when you have it naturally as a talent, it very much shines through Paula's work that you feel very connected.
Oh, thank you. Well, and Weaving a Woman's Life, again, weaving is a mythic action.
Absolutely.
And I talk about the three fates, in that book and some of the other, Arachne and Athena and so forth. So you can see it's just part of who I am.
Well, I love who you are, and really, that's all that matters, right?
Exactly. Really.
I mean, we have matching mugs. I think that speaks for itself right there. Absolutely. Well, we're closing in on the time. I wanted to see, like, so can you tell us, well, first of all, before I let Paula talk about where you can find her and what's coming up next, I highly, 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 highly recommend that you go to her website after she tells you what it is, and you sign up for her newsletter, and you also sign up for her Divine Musings newsletter that comes out twice or like every other Tuesday. It will spark you like
Every
nothing
Tuesday.
else. Every Tuesday? Is it every Tuesday? Okay, sorry about that. Thank God you're here so that I don't say the wrong thing. But it'll spark you like nothing else. And also watch, she does weekly card spreads through YouTube. That also is amazing. So, Paula, tell us where we can find you and what's coming up next.
Okay, well, that you can look for the Divining the Muse newsletter, which is really for writers and to inspire writers and readers too, at diviningthemuse.com. And then my author website is Paula Chaffee Scardamalia.com. It's a long one.
I'll put it in the link.
And yes, I do. Okay, thanks. Sure. And the newsletter that comes out weekly on Tuesday is really about, for creatives of all kinds. And then on Mondays, I do the tarot reading on the tarot message from the Muse. And you can find that on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. And let's see what's coming up next. I'm doing this online class right now, and then I'm also I'm going to be speaking at the Lodge at the Poconos on Dreams and Tarot in August, and then
very cool.
Later in the year, I'll probably be at a conference for the Liberty fiction writers in New Jersey. So
awesome!
But and I'm always looking for opportunities to teach online, and
which you're
if somebody
really
wants help with their Thank you. With their stories, So.
Yeah. Well, because you also coach, you were saying, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll put the links down the bottom for you guys so that you can go check her out, because they're like, first of all, her website, you may not be able to stop staring at it. So I'm just warning you right now that when you open it up, there's this amazing, amazing, beautiful picture that I'm just like,
that's by Ciro Marchetti, who has done a number of tarot decks that I use when I'm doing work with people. So he's an amazing illustrator and artist. I love his work.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And then there's a lot of stuff to run through and look around and peek here and there. And if you end up with questions, as I have said in previous podcasts, please drop them in the comments below. I'll make sure that Paula can see them. And if there's something that she or I can help you learn, we would be more than happy to provide some information and, at least get you on the path to where you want to go. And then Paula has additional resources that I don't. She has additional resources where she can help you even more. So thank you, Paula. I'm so excited that we got to do this. I have been very much looking forward to this one for weeks, because I was like, oh, I got to get her scheduled. We got to do this. I'm so excited because I really do enjoy the books, and it has
so much fun.
Yes. And it's very much helped my writing go to a next level to have these resources. And I just really enjoy spending time with you.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you everyone for coming by and watching. I hope that you'll check out some of the links. And like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the bottom. And thank you again for hanging out with Gabby Allen on Out on a Limb. Have a great day.